Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. In my last message, I talked to you all about our dearly departed angel in heaven, Shanquilla Robinson, and the message her passing has imparted on us. Part of what I discussed with you all is how everyone can't handle your light. The video evidence involved in her passing shows us how the people around her were triggered by Shanquilla's light, so much so that they caused her so much harm in so many ways, for doing absolutely nothing to them but being the beautiful spirit that she was. So in today's message, I wanted to emphasize 3 main points you should know about your light. First of all, many of us don't even realize what our own light is. Many of us can't see what others see in us. So when we find ourselves being cornered or afflicted by our peers or family members, we tend to shrug it off. We don't make it a big deal to us, but it's still a big deal to them because they can't shake off their envy, and they won't. And you need to be prepared on how to respond to that. Because while we keep downplaying it, they'll keep escalating their little jabs at you until it snowballs into something you can't handle. But I realize that when I tell people to be cautious of how others respond to your light, if you don't know what your light is, if you don't see your light, you may not clock it or recognize and pay attention to what your secret haters are being triggered by. So I wanted to use today's message to talk about your light and all the triumph, tribulations, testimony, victory, and God's glory that comes with it. Because being too humble to recognize your light will only do you a disservice when the enemy sends people to you who are triggered by your light, and you're not being aware enough to see what you're up against and what's going on around you. When the enemy is being triggered by your light and acting out against you, don't dim it, clock it, meaning don't dim your light. Take note of what's going on because your Judas are identifying themselves. God is using their trigger like a barking dog to identify them. God is using their trigger like a fire alarm that detects smoke before the fire gets out of hand. God uses your enemy's trigger response to your light to alert and warn you that you have a Judas in your midst. When they get triggered, they expose and identify themselves to you. And that's when you're supposed to separate the wheats from the tares. That's when you disconnect from them. Start your exit plan. You don't carpool with them, you don't room with them, you don't take trips with them, don't share anything that connects you with them whatsoever. But many of us don't know what our enemies get triggered by because our light is so natural to us, we don't even get it, we don't see it. Your light can be as simple as your confidence, your charisma, your personal qualities, your skill sets, your gifts, your success. It can be your looks. I've known people who I honestly thought were better looking than me be triggered by my looks. It can be your intelligence. It can be the way you're able to see through them and others. It can be the way you're able to read a room. It can be your EQ or your IQ. It can oftentimes be your raw talents. Maybe you both know how to braid, but you come up with better braid patterns and designs, or you get more customers because you have better customer service. It can be your pure effervescence. Your light can be the qualities we take for granted because we see the same qualities in those around us, but we're not wired to be envious of those qualities, while others seriously are. And that envy can be on a diabolical level that you'll never believe. So please take note of your light and zoom in on those who get triggered by it because they're telling on themselves and they're warning you. So that was the first point about recognizing your light and who gets triggered by it. The second point I wanted to make about your light and your favor is everything that comes with it, meaning the good and the bad, for better or worse. Remember, it's all for the glory of God. Remember that we've just agreed to be vessels. It's not about us. So when we're in our season of tribulation and warfare, and you're praying and crying out to God every day, yelling, "Why me, God? Why me?" When you're living like Job and God has allowed the enemy to take you down to nothing, and you're crying out, "Why me, God? Why me?" When you're on the run like Elijah because psychos are after you, but you've done exactly what God told you to do, and you've even proven yourself in front of everyone, and God still let them put a hit out on your life, and you find yourself running through the wilderness, hiding in caves, starving in the desert, and you're crying out, "Why me, God? Why me?" Remember that it's not about you. Just as your enemies have agreed to be used by the devil to harm you, you've agreed to be used by God in the opposite way. You've agreed to get in alignment with God's will for your life. You've agreed to be a vessel for God. So when you find yourself thinking, why me, God? Why me? Remember, it's not about you. This is all for the glory of God. This is all for the testimony God is creating through your life. And God is putting everything together for the good of those who love the Lord. And this third and last point I'm going to make about your light is the flip side of the second point I just made. Remember, you've agreed to be a vessel. You've agreed to be used by God for His testimony through the good and the bad. So when you've faithfully made it out of the affliction you didn't deserve, and you finally find yourself entering your season of deliverance, the spiritual warfare is over, the enemy has finally been restrained, and you're basking in the peace of it all. Now everyone finally sees what was really going on all this time, and your flowers start to bloom, and your favor starts to resume. Don't let it get to your head. Those aren't your flowers, and that's not your spotlight. It's time for you to tell God's testimony of how He never left you, of how your faith was never in vain. Your favor and the new life you're going to walk into will have you crying out tears of joy, trying to process, trying to contemplate, still trying to fathom everything you just made it out of, everything you made it through. But remember, you didn't make it through anything on your own. You would have gotten baited like a fish if it weren't for God's armor of protection over you. Your deliverance will have you crying tears of joy, trying to take in all the happiness of your victory. But the victory was God's. You were just smart enough to get in alignment with God. You were smart enough to pick the right side. So you were always set to win. And when you walk into your favor of deliverance, you'll be so relieved and overwhelmed. You'll be crying tears of joy, saying, "Why me, Lord? I'm not worthy of all this." It's still not about you, not the good or the bad. It's all about God's glory and sharing His testimony of how when you were up against the world, God was more than the universe. It's about sharing God's testimony of how when your enemies thought they could take you and they came knocking on your door, God answered it. It's about sharing God's testimony to His sheep and allowing your life to prove that your faith was never in vain and you were never alone. Remember that God is always the main character. God was always our provider and protector through all of this, and God is still our Alpha and Omega. He is very much our omniscient and omnipotent God. He was always there all along. Act like you know. That's my message for today, family. If you find my channel helpful, I hope you'll subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a message. I post daily, so I'll be back on here to talk to you all soon. In the meantime, keep your heads up. Stay prayed up because God wants to hear from you. I love you all, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.